Well, Mike, let's circle back. You mentioned BNI taking a banking holiday until July 1st there, I think in Italy, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Now, this is what people need to understand about how insidious and how quickly these things can happen. Now, I've always said that the end will come like a thief in the night here for the American people, whether it's through a dollar collapse or a banking holiday. This gets me back to Patricia's idea that, she feels duped, even as it relates to precious metals, because she's lost some money having bought silver in the 40s. But the point is, Mike, is that silver and gold and some of these other assets, they're all you'll be able to trust when a banking holiday comes, right? Let's talk about this idea of what this collapse means.
Yeah, absolutely. When we talk about investing in gold and silver, and we're talking investing in the metals, not the numismatic value of the coins, because there's a lot of shady, underhanded stuff being done with that. You need to understand, if you're buying into gold and silver and the price goes down, it's because the banks and stock market are trying to keep that price down through the COMEX, through dumping their own surplus gold and silver on the market, because if they don't do that, if they don't keep the prices down, then people are going to abandon the paper markets and the equity markets, and they're going to be investing in silver and gold. And I shouldn't use that word invest. It's really parking wealth and parking value in gold and silver. And your friend Patricia, she should just hang on to the silver. It is going to go up again as soon as the big money centers run out of surplus silver and gold they can dump on the market to suppress the prices. But, there's a tremendous amount of fraud and deception going out there to keep people loyal to those paper markets, because as soon as people start bailing, everything's going to come apart. The stock market manipulation has resulted in an overvaluation of the equities markets that's greater than it was in 1929. And since Obama came into office, they're pushing it up and pushing it up, because that's the only banner they've got left to wave to say that the economy is still functioning. Hey, everything's got to be okay. The stock market is doing well. In fact, even Bill Maher bought into that. I caught his show the other night where he was saying, I know things look bad out on the streets of America, but hey, the stock market's going up, so, it can't all be bad. And he's just bought into this idea and not realizing the stock market is being gamed up by the high-speed computer traders, Goldman Sachs and so forth, specifically because they need something to point to say the system is still working. And yet it really, really isn't. And when it comes apart, silver and gold will explode upward. And again, the only thing the government has left to try and deal with this crisis is hyperinflation. We're going to be right down there like Zimbabwe with $100 trillion notes. And by the way, just as a joke, during my show, I went out to eBay and I actually bought a Zimbabwe $100 trillion note for 99 cents. And that is the future of America. But I think it's not going to get that bad, because right now, in addition to all the U.S. government debt and the consumer debt, the United States financial sector is home to trillions of dollars of foreign investment, which is parked here in the United States of America and kept here with a promise that if they make money, they can keep it, and if they lose money, the American taxpayer will be forced to cover the losses. That's what they did back in the 1980s with the S&L disaster. That's what all this TARP and bailout and everything else is, transferring the losses from the rich people onto the ordinary American taxpayer. And on the day when those foreign investors understand that we, the American people, don't have the ability to cover those losses any longer, then they're going to yank their money. It'll be like the movie Rollover in real life. And we know this is the way the U.S. government works, and it is absolutely the definition of fascism. I've got all these people who write emails saying, you can't challenge capitalism. We're a capitalist nation. Isn't that worth protecting? Well, it would be, except we stopped being a capitalist economy 20, 30 years ago. And we are now operating as a fascist economy. And to give you an idea of what I mean, let's get some definitions out of the way. Under capitalism, when you make money, you get to keep it. And if you lose money, then you're on the hook for it. You owe it until you can square it off. You may die in debt. That's capitalism. Freedom means the freedom to succeed. It also means the freedom to fail. And you have to live with that. That's the responsibility that comes with freedom and capitalism. Under socialism, if you make money, it's taxed away from you to better society. If you lose money, society is taxed to cover the losses so you can start again. But under fascism, if you make money, you get to keep it. But if you lose money, it's socialized across the entire population so that you can dump the losses and go back and try again. And that's where we are with all these bailouts and TARP. We're a fascist economic state. And that's why every time Wall Street makes a mistake or commits a crime and gets caught on it, they just shrug their shoulders, the government transfers the losses onto the American people, and they go back to playing their little Wall Street games. In the last 3 years, the average American has lost 40% of their net worth. That is how much you have lost to pay for Wall Street's mortgage-backed security fraud, the biggest financial swindle in history, and yet nobody's been arrested for this crime, nobody's been charged or tried or gone to jail for it. The United States should have done what Iceland did. Throw the crooked bankers in prison and fire the government that helped them loot the people. And Iceland's economy is booming. They're on their way up. They're developing. They're growing. Life is good over there. But here in the United States of America, there was a policy decision in 2008. We're not going to investigate Wall Street. We're not going to charge them. We must preserve the reputation and trustworthiness of Wall Street, not that it actually has any left. But that was the justification for basically dumping $90 trillion in financial losses onto the American people.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. We've made the same point here. The government is fascist. It's in bed with the corporations. The corporations essentially run the government. High-frequency trading on Wall Street is 70% of all trading. J.P. Morgan's in there as a primary dealer of the Fed. The plunge protection team in there, working the stock market up, like you noted, so that at least people who are invested in the market feel fat and happy. But meanwhile, the train is headed down the tracks. The train is headed off the tracks. We can see the cliff coming. And the cliff, we can see the train ahead of us, can't we? The engines are right going over the tracks over the edge right now. We can see it in Europe, right, Mike? I mean, that's what's coming here.
I think anybody who's objective about it, knows that a complete disaster is on the way, but there's a lot of denial within the American people, within the American media, within Wall Street, within Washington, D.C. They don't want to face up to the fact that they have absolutely destroyed the greatest nation on earth, and they're just gaming the system along. They're kiting the debt forward. They're hoping to make it somebody else's problem after their term in office is over. We had a story we carried on whatreallyhappened.com just yesterday that psychiatrists evaluating the behavior of our Wall Street bankers, the too big to jail CEOs, are finding disturbing signs of mental illness among them, including a complete denial of what's going on and a sense of utter personal supremacy and arrogance that, obviously they're completely disconnected from what's going on. They don't want to see it. And we're seeing that in government. We're seeing that in our financial leaders. And if you really think about it, economics isn't a science, it's a religion. It's an arbitrary set of rules and regulations and belief structures on which it operates. And I think the people in Wall Street are having a crisis of faith. They're seeing that it isn't working, but they so want to believe in it, they're just going to keep on going until they fall off the cliff.
Well, in our last few minutes together, let's explore that, because I think you hit on something really, really interesting. This idea of absolute denial from the money junkies. Do you think that that's also what's happening with these families at the top of the pyramid as it relates to the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers and the European monarchies? I mean, these people that meet at Bilderberg Group, are they in that same level of denial? And when their system finally crashes, is there any hope for us having a golden new age built from liberty and starting over with honest money?
Well, I would absolutely say that following the crash, there's going to be an opportunity to build new nations on Earth, and we've got to start thinking about what they should be right now, because there will be no end of carpetbaggers coming along saying, "Wow, I got a new government for you. Just sign your name right here, and we'll get you all set up here." And they're all going to be working for the money junkies to basically re-enslave us to the old systems. I mean, look back at the American Revolution. We fought a revolution to be free of private central banking. Our schools don't teach it, but that was really what was going on. You can read the writings of Ben Franklin for confirmation. And then all of a sudden we have a country with a government-issued value-based currency. The banking clans in Europe were in an absolute panic because they didn't want that to get out. And so they start trying to subvert it. They try to get another war going, War of 1812. When that didn't work, they started bribing our politicians to get the first and second banks of the United States, and then finally the third bank of the United States, otherwise known as the Federal Reserve. And anytime somebody comes out with a value-based currency issued by the government, war is declared on them. That's what happened to Gaddafi over in Libya. 2 years ago, he was everybody's friend. He was a reformed terrorist. He was doing wonderful works for the Libyan people. He was running his country really well, and it was on the way up. Then he starts talking about a state-issued currency. The banking cartels, the private central bankers of the world, do not want government-issued value-based currency. That was actually a big part of what happened in the run-up to World War II, because following World War I, Germany had a private central bank imposed on them by the Treaty of Versailles, and they got into the hyperinflation, Zimbabwe-style basket of paper notes to get a loaf of bread. And then when the Weimar Republic fell, they went to a government-issued value-based currency, and it turned Germany around so much it was called the German miracle. And Time magazine made Adolf Hitler their man of the year for the amazing economic miracle they had pulled in Germany. And at that point, you had people like Winston Churchill saying, we better stop this right now. And so in 1933, the rest of the banks around the world declared a boycott against Germany to crush this upstart state-issued value-based currency out of existence. And, of course, that's what set the stage for World War II.
Mike, just a fascinating conversation. Thanks so much for your time. Now, before I let you go, I want to hit on one other thing that you hit on quite frequently on your show, which is take a look at ancient Rome. I mean, they did a debt jubilee every 50 years, which kept the republic alive and well, and people got to start fresh. And had we known the way the bankers were going to screw us with TARP and $24 trillion in debt, blah, 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 they could have just written off all the mortgages. They could have done a debt jubilee. I mean, why is that not on the table?
Because debt represents control. I mean, we all know the money is just created out of thin air, and we're paying interest on money that was created out of thin air, but we're not allowed to create the debt payment out of thin air, which is why debt always exceeds the available money supply. That's the debt trap. So the reason for this gaming by the bankers, it isn't about wealth, it's about power, to keep us all, whether we are individuals or nations, slaves to debt. And as long as we go on believing in that, we will be their slaves. But it's just another fraud to rule the world. It's like I said, it's like another religion. Economics is not a science. It's all on faith and belief. And there have been other ruling systems based on belief. There was rule by divine right. You must do what I say because I speak for the imaginary playmate up in the clouds. And we evolved as a civilization to understand that's not legitimate. It's just a hoax played on people to get them to do what they're told. Then there was the other one, rule by chattel ownership of your body. I have this piece of paper that says I own you, therefore you must do what I say or I'll have you flogged. But as a civilization, we evolved to understand that one person owning another is illegitimate. It was just another hoax to get people to do as they're told. Now we have a new model, rule by debt, rule by compound interest. And it is time for us to evolve as a civilization and understand that rule by debt is no more legitimate than rule by chattel ownership of your body or rule by divine right. And as we talk about the kind of world and the kind of nations that we have in this age of global instantaneous electronic communication, I think rule by consensus is the model we should be aiming towards right now.
Absolutely. And you know what? We're waking up thanks to this thing called the Internet. I really, truly believe the world is waking up. The people, for the first time, can see the evil men behind the curtain. They're exposed. The genie's out of the bottle. And I don't think there's any way to put the genie back in the bottle. Well, Mike Rivero, thanks so much for your inspiration and everything you're doing for truth-telling. WhatReallyHappened.com is one of the best websites out there for real news every day. And I just can't thank you enough for your time.
Well, thank you very much. But, we're all fellow travelers on that same road to restoring the Republic.
That's right. Well, thanks for the education you've provided me. I'll tell you that much.
Well, you got it, and have yourself a good evening, and we'll do it again in the near future.
I appreciate it. I look forward to it as well. Thanks, Mike.
You got it. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, that's it, guys. Thanks for tuning in, and visit sgtreport.com for all the latest.